This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Today's verse of the day comes from Mark 16, verse 15. He said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." Good morning. Welcome to the Verse of the Day podcast presented by Public House Media. Thanks for being here today. Happy Wednesday to you, depending on when you're listening into this episode. Hope your week is going well. And it's great to obviously have you back here on Verse of the Day as we look into a verse today from the book of Mark, one of the four Gospels, the shortest of the four Gospels as well, too. It's always really cool when I can look in a little bit deeper, especially when the pastor at my church right now is actually been doing a series on Mark for quite some time, so it's always cool when he'll say something and then it kind of lines up schedule-wise with what we're doing here on the show, and then it's like, oh, cool, I can kind of steal little snippets and tidbits from what he offers as well, too, so kind of a cool thing when that works out. A quick reminder for you, of course, we are on Apple Podcasts, so please go over there and give the show a download and subscribe if you'd be so kind. And if you know somebody that you think would need to hear one of the episodes we've done, this is episode 78 now that we're doing, so holy cow, praise God for that. That's amazing that we've been able to do so many shows so far. The show comes out Monday through Friday, by the way, if you haven't heard. If this is your first time listening, please share it with somebody. If you're new today as well, listening in, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy the show, and you'll come back as well. So this verse today specifically comes to us from Jesus as he is doing the Great Commission. And for those that are not as familiar with what the Great Commission is, this is when Jesus is really starting to kind of put the bow on his time on the earth, because as we know, a couple chapters later, at least here in Mark, is when he will ultimately end up being crucified and everything else that we know that goes along with him dying and then rising again. But the Great Commission is when he is Jesus himself here speaking to his disciples, and this is his charge to them. Him basically saying, "Look, I've done virtually all I can do for you while I'm here on this earth. Now it's your turn to go and carry on the work that we've started." Jesus did an amazing job of laying such a powerful groundwork and foundation for those that wanted to continue on with, spreading the gospel and spreading the good news that he had been doing for several years. And now it was the disciples' turn, because Jesus already knew, because he is all-knowing and all-seeing, that his time on this earth was coming to an end. So he gives them this charge, and he says, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." And we see this. We see the disciples after Jesus fully ascends into heaven. We see all of them basically scatter. Some stay in that general area from where they were located at the time. But then we see a lot of different guys go all over the place. We see Thomas go to India. We see different ones head to northern Africa as we know it nowadays. Obviously, it was differently known back in those times. But the gospel spreads and spreads and spreads. How else do you think we know about it here in the United States or wherever you might be listening? Is because those original disciples took time to go into all of the world as Jesus commanded them and commissioned them to do. And as they kept trying to spread the gospel, therefore, it continued to move to others and finally reach others as well. So it's really cool and really special to know that, just 11 to 13 guys way back thousands of years ago are the main reason you and I can sit here and talk about our faith a little bit right now, because they took the words that Jesus bestowed upon them, and they took them and they ran with them, and the ripple effect has now had hundreds of years, thousands of years a ripple effect. And that's pretty special, in my opinion. I think that's very special to know that. And you obviously want to say thank you to those disciples that went through pain and torture and just ridicule and were just really beat down. But they never stopped. They never turned their back on God. And amazingly, and this is a fact that always blows my mind, I believe it's, and I always forget the official number, but I think all but one, or maybe all 11 disciples, aside from Judas, obviously, who initially was a part of the 12, all 11, I believe, were all killed because of their faith, because of who they were. And we even see Paul, obviously, who wasn't an official disciple, go and get killed as well too. But it's amazing. All of these men died for their faith, spreading the good news to all ends of the earth for the sake of Jesus. Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a big thing for me to just come at you right away and say, well, are you willing to die for your faith? But in a sense, where are you with your faith journey? Are you in a place that you feel confident enough in that you could strike up a conversation with somebody at the grocery store, or at your church, or on the soccer field as you're watching your kids run around, or wherever, at school, in the classroom, in the dorm, whoever you might be, wherever you might be going in your life? How much do you feel like you know about your faith and about Christianity? And would you feel comfortable if somebody asked you some questions about it? It's always hard. It's always a hard question to answer, because some people say, yeah, I know anything. And some people are like, well, if you only ask me, about Jesus' time on this earth, and you ask me how to be a good person, I can answer those questions. But if you want to get all deep and doctoral and all this other stuff, that's totally above me. And then, I freak out and I run away, basically. And that's understandable, because to be fair, the average Christian does not have those 7 to 10 layers deep of doctoral studies or biblical graduate studies like those that are either working in the church or just are big fact gatherers as well. So don't take any negative connotation against yourself in that regards. But how comfortable do you feel? That's something to ask yourself today. Spreading, as we see the disciples, as Jesus says, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. How are you doing that? Whether you are in Iowa, whether you're in California, whether you are in Florida, whether you are in Italy, wherever you might be, do you feel comfortable sharing your faith? And that's something for you to personally reflect on. If your answer is yes, fantastic, keep at it. If your answer is no, well, think about it and do some reflection time today and say, okay, well, what do I need to do to get to a more comfortable place where if people do have questions, or if you are a young parent and you have kids that are smart, that are starting to learn how to talk and put things together and ask questions and ask questions and ask questions, eventually that question is going to come up as well. A good friend of mine, his kids are 2 and 4, and they're already asking questions about Jesus. 2 and 4. The fact that they have the wherewithal and the knowledge to do that now is incredible, so I commend them for that. But it's going to start young, and all of a sudden, boom, you're answering questions about transfiguration and transubstantiation. You're like, how do you even know these words? But figuring out that general baseline is important for us. So keep that in mind today with all that you do. But really take a little reflection time, whether on your drive to work, as you're getting ready this morning, in the shower, whatever it might be, and think about that question that I asked. If you were asked about your faith, do you feel like you are at a place that you are comfortable enough to answer general questions, and that you would be able to potentially point a non-believer to where they would need to be to get the information that they would need to learn more, to potentially help, bring them into the faith? Maybe yes, maybe no. For me, it all depends. I definitely do my best and try to have as deep a knowledge as possible, but sometimes people just know how to ask the right question where you're like, I gotta look it up. And don't be afraid to say that too. It's okay. If you don't know the answer, I would rather, and anybody, I think in any situation, if you don't know the answer, it's better to say, let me look it up and let me get back to you, as opposed to trying to make something up and then you look foolish because you did not do the research, or you give a false answer and then you look foolish because clearly they're like, well, obviously Baxter doesn't know what he's talking about. So great reminders for you this morning, something to keep in the back of your mind. I pray that no matter where you are in your faith journey, that as you continue to keep growing, you feel that confidence that you be able to speak and to be able to minister to those, because as we see, not only to the Great Commission, to the disciples, but I think it's very important for us as 21st century people nowadays, that it is still important for us that the gospel keeps needing to spread, because there are still so many thousands of people that have never heard the words of Jesus Christ and his amazing salvation and grace. Thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, depending on the locations in all the world. Get involved with your church, go out into your community, and really continue to help spreading the gospel. You never know how changing one life can make such a huge difference. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Thanks for listening in.
You've been listening to the Verse of the Day podcast presented by Public House Media. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Verse of the Day. I hope you'll go and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Google Play Music as well. A new episode comes out every Monday through Friday. You won't want to miss it. More information about Verse of the Day can be found by heading over to thephmedia.com.